All right, so we are finally getting to Titans Season 2, Episode 1. And I'm very excited to talk about this because I ended up actually really liking Season 1, and I was excited to see what they were going to do with Season 2. And so now that we're through the first episode, and I've watched some of the remainder episodes too, but I don't want to merge them together. I want to talk about each one separately. But before we get into that, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It tremendously helps the channel grow, and I would really appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's start with some cast members. I'm going to kind of blend my overall thoughts, the writing quality, all that stuff in with, these different things that I talk about. So let's just start with Dick Grayson. I loved it. I really liked the things that he had to say, his character arc all the way through Season 1, merging into Season 2. So if you don't remember, in the end of Season 1, he, kills Batman. Well, he thinks that he kills Batman, right? It's in a dream world. And he kind of gives into his darkness, which makes sense because he was constantly battling with this, these inner demons. And he kind of resented Batman for treating him the way that he did and, raising him the way that he did. And I can understand that. It was a pretty brutal environment, but he turned out okay. But he didn't want to be Robin anymore. He burned his suit, right, all this stuff, and he wanted to come up with a new identity. And so they blended that into Season 2, Episode 1, and they did a really good job. So I really liked it. But Rachel, let's talk about Rachel. Oh, Rachel. I can't get behind it. I hate it. I hate everything about it. The first episode opens where it left off. It opens with Dick Grayson, being under the control of Trigon. And it opens with her face as a close-up, and the acting is just so bad. It's so bad. And I can't get behind the hair. I've always thought that the purple hair was a little bizarre. And nothing that she said in this entire episode was convincing and didn't really hold a lot of weight. It fell flat. Her crying, her emotions didn't win me over at all. And so overall, I give it 2 thumbs down. I just couldn't get behind it. And I'll give my overall grade for the entire episode at the end of this video. But I'm not a big fan of the Rachel character, what they've done with her, the writing behind it. I don't think the actress is very good, and I really hope that they can figure something else out. So, moving on, let's go into some of the more side characters. Let's talk about Gar Logan, right? So, Beast Boy. I actually liked what they did with him for the most part in this. The CGI is a lot better. The way that they can turn him from, normal-looking guy to green-looking guy was a lot better than in Season 1. I'm curious to see what some of the bigger effects are going to be with him. Turning into a bear does probably cost a lot, so I get it, and I understand why some of the CGI is a little funky. But what didn't make sense is just his total lack of just using the powers that are clearly available to him. And he got his ass whipped for no reason. So he stood there, got kicked in the balls. I'm pretty sure Jason Todd kicked him in the balls. And he didn't use a single power until the end to pretend like he was dead. He got his ass whipped. And it didn't have to be that way. It could have been way better, but I could see, if it's expensive to use the CGI on him, use it sparingly. They're probably going to use him later in a really big fight scene. So I get it if they don't have the budget for it, but if you don't have the budget for it, don't set up the premise, don't set up the situation, I should say, to where he probably should be going beast mode and he just completely forgets and absolutely gets thrashed. So I didn't really like that, but I thought his acting was fine, and I think the CGI is going to be a little bit better. I think they have a bigger budget this time around. So going into Donna Troy, so Wonder Girl, hated every second of it. And the reason why is because nothing that she had to say had any weight, didn't matter what she said or what she didn't say, it didn't affect the story at all. I didn't think her acting was very good. When she did speak, it didn't matter, and I think that's a big problem, especially for somebody who's supposed to be held at such high esteem. So, let me give you a scenario. They're trying to break in, her and Starfire are trying to break into the house that's got a force field around it in order to try to save everybody that's gone in, right? And instead of focusing on that, they're bickering about complete nonsense, which ties into Starfire and her character arc, which I don't think is very good. And I like the actress. I can't get behind how they've developed her so far. You know, I really hope that they really do something special with the character. They just kind of, they have this overall like subplot of her coming to Earth to kill Rachel to try to keep Trigon from coming, but then they drop it and then they bring it back and then they drop it again in season 1 and then they bring it back for this, but it's ever so brief. And so I don't think they're doing a lot of justice to the character, and I would say the same thing about Wonder Girl. And so I hope that they kind of develop those a little bit better and they actually give them both something to do. I like both actresses. I think both actresses have the potential to do something really special with the characters. I'm just not seeing it yet. Dove and Hawk. I like Hawk a lot. Alan, the actor who plays Hawk, or Hank Hall, Alan Richson, I'm a big fan. I follow some of his fitness stuff. You know, he's mostly a model, but he's done some acting. He's been in Blue Mountain State, which I'm a big fan of. And I also liked him in Smallville. I didn't think Smallville was particularly very good, but I did like him as, you know, a younger version of Aquaman. And I think, you know, they're kind of going for kind of a quirkier side with that character, and I thought he fit pretty well with that. So I'm excited to see him in this again, and I liked seeing more of the human side. They kind of did a drug thing with Dove and Hawk, which I really liked. You know, they're both drug addicts or whatnot, and that's how they both give into their inner darkness during the dream sequences. And I really liked that. I liked not seeing him necessarily in the suit, but more so just dealing with his problems, and I appreciated that. Let's talk about Dove. I have mixed feelings. So I think that she's a great actress. I think Dove is a really interesting character, especially with how they kind of elevated the character with the drug problems in this episode. But the way she speaks, it's super one tone. So it's very breathy and it doesn't have a lot of emotion behind it. And so it's a little jarring when there's an emotional scene or something that she says so clearly should have some emotion behind it, but it's all just the same tone that she's used all the way through the series so far. And I don't really think that would be my preferred method. If I was the actress going through and, you know, and doing these scenes, I would prefer to have more emotion behind it, but that's kind of how they've kept that consistent, and that's how they're gonna, I think roll with it. So I'm gonna probably have to just get used to it, but it comes across boring and a little mundane. But I think the actress and I think the character is cool. So it's a mixed bag for me. Jason Todd. Oh my gosh, I fucking hate that guy, but I think you're supposed to hate that kid. It's frustrating because he doesn't actually do anything that proves that he's any good. He's gotten his ass whipped every time he's fought, except some basic hand-to-hand stuff against some clearly, you know, henchmen that really aren't any good. You probably should beat that guy if you've been training with Batman for X amount of years. You probably should at least be able to do that. But anything worth bragging about, he's lost. So I don't understand why he thinks he's so good. I don't understand why he thinks he's the best Robin. I don't understand why he thinks he can go up against Dick Grayson and win. I think it's incredibly stupid of the character to have that level of cockiness and ego. But I think it's supposed to be that way because it kind of sets up the Jason Todd Red Hood sequence, right? But if you think about it, you know, his age, and then kind of tying into Bruce Wayne a little bit, Bruce Wayne is super old in this, which is a little weird because Red Hood's not around yet. They haven't really talked a lot about the Joker, but, you know, if the Joker's still in prime time, it's a little weird that Batman is this old because Dick Grayson isn't even Nightwing yet. And so I like that they're going with the older version of Batman because it's a different take on Batman that we don't see, but I mean, he doesn't have a great physique. Like, it's a little confusing how he's going on missions and taking down some pretty big bad guys when he looks kind of like the best in shape old guy you would see at a typical gym. You know, it's a little funky. But besides that, I really like the Bruce Wayne character, and I hate Jason Todd, but I think you're supposed to. But I did have the same reaction that he did when he saw that beautiful gym at the end of the episode. And I mean, I own one. You're looking at the one, and so I was a big fan. And I'm proficient in Kobutan and a little bit of Filipino martial arts, and so I loved some of the bow staff stuff that they had, and I thought it was really cool. And I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, that's pretty badass gym. I kind of want that gym. So I did like him on that front. But Batman, I think, is going to be super interesting. I really liked the father-son dynamic that they kind of set up at the end of the episode with Dick. And I liked that over the course of this episode, Dick came to the conclusion that he just needs to move on. And it sucks that his parents died. It sucks that Batman probably wasn't the nicest, best parent on the planet, but he did the best he could with what he had to work with, and he appreciates him on that front, and he's willing to mend some of these broken wounds. And so I appreciated that, and I really liked that conversation. I thought it was really good. Let's talk about Slade Wilson. So Rose Wilson is in this, Slade Wilson is in this, and I think that was supposed to be Billy Wintergreen, which was the guy who was with him at their secret lair or whatever. And I'm super pumped. It was interesting because they're going with the older Slade too. He's clearly, I would say he's clearly past his prime. He's retired, I think, and he looks kind of like a lumberjack when you first see him. His hair's all fucked up, and he's just not put together. He's a mess. And then he sees Jason Todd being stupid on TV, and it like shocks him back into I need to take down the Titans mode. And it kind of sets up this idea that I think they're going to set up this idea that Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, was a big bad for Dick Grayson, Dove, Hawk, and Wonder Girl when they were the Titans. And then that team disbanded, and so did Deathstroke. He moved on with his life or whatever. I think that's kind of where they're going with it, and then he's coming out of retirement to take down the new team, and I'm excited to see that. And I loved the suit. The suit is fantastic. I think it's a step up from the CW suit. I think that it's more true to the comic book original, and it looks sleeker, and I'm pumped to see that thing in action. So, and I loved the way that they displayed the suit. I wasn't a big fan with how they displayed Hawk, Dove, Robin's suit, in that chamber towards the end that Jason Todd walks in on. I do like how they set up the suit for Deathstroke. I thought it looked better, and it made more sense, right? If you look at where they put the costumes for the heroes, there's not even like a curtain or a rack or anything to put these suits on, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But this one did, because it had a mannequin and you put the armor over it. So I really liked it, and I'm excited to see Slade Wilson in action. I don't know why he doesn't like American tea, though. He just goes for China tea all the time. So I think maybe they go with that story arc a little bit. I'd love to see, why he doesn't like American stuff. But I thought that was funny. Let's talk about my least favorite thing of the episode. Trigon. I hated it. I thought I was going to really like it, and I hated it. And the reason why is because you set up a big bad for an entire season. It was Rachel needs to find Dick, and then, Starfire's trying to kill Rachel because of Trigon, and Trigon's wife or lover, Rachel's mom is secretly a bad guy, but convincing Rachel to be a good guy to convince her to let Trigon out, and it's this whole thing, this mesh of lies and nonsense. And I liked it. That's why I liked season 1. I was like, oh, they're setting up Trigon. This is gonna be big shit at the beginning of season 2. Maybe he's gonna be the bad guy for the entire season. That would be cool. And he lasted 30 minutes. He didn't even last the whole episode. They killed him off, and then they set up a whole bunch of other subplots. Batman, Slade Wilson, Billy Wintergreen, the new Titans workshop, right? And they set up all these new things with all the time they had left because they killed him. Oh my God. It drives me crazy because it's a waste of a character, a waste of my time, and my excitement, getting excited for this. It's a waste of your time watching it, right? And it's bad writing, in my opinion. It's just a waste. It's disappointing. And I liked him as a human. I thought he was really, really good, very convincing when he was a human. But when he turned into a demon, man, oh my God, it was just so bad. It was so bad. It didn't look good. The CGI was bad. The heart in the hand was terrible. The only thing that was convincing was how when his horns grew, it kind of looked good. But the way he walked looked like it was some dude on stilts. Or a robot of some sort. Didn't look good. The way he breathed didn't match how his ribs would expand, so it looked funky. His teeth looked fake. His mouth didn't move right. It just didn't work. It didn't look good. And it's disappointing because you've had all this time to set him up to be somebody that's got a lot of weight to it. And you kill him off in 35 fucking minutes? Are you serious? And it's not even a good death. It's not even good. Rachel turns, to a villain, right? So he convinces her to let her out, and then he, overtakes her, turns her into a little henchman along with the rest of the team. And I'm really over the cliche, like, love will bring you back, but breaking the heart will cause the problem. I thought that was super cliche. They were telling me that the whole world is going to end, and it's dictated off the fact that this 14-year-old girl is crying enough. That's what we're going with, that she's sad enough that the whole world's going to end because she's sad enough. That's what we got. That's the best we could come up with. Out of everything that you could have said, that's what we have to deal with. Come on. Really? And then he's out there. He's going to go take over the world. He's this big demon. He's not even really that tall and scary looking, but he's this big demon, and he goes out into the field, and you know what he does? He stands there, and he kills a couple crows. That's it. That's his big plan. He goes and stands in the middle of the field. That's it. Nothing else. Doesn't even bother killing off anybody except the wife. Just snaps her neck, and that didn't even look good. It wasn't scary. It wasn't menacing. I didn't care. I thought it was super dumb. And then she wakes back up, right? And she overcomes his spell. So he goes out there. She's like, hey, father. And he turns around. 2 seconds ago, she had black eyes because she was a henchman. Her eyes are totally normal. He doesn't say a thing. Doesn't even notice. Doesn't even notice that she's not under his control anymore. And then she just starts talking, just starts mouthing off. You'd think that he would have noticed or have known just to begin with, because you would hope that you would know your own powers, that when someone's under your control, they don't speak. They just stand there like robots, like everybody else is doing. But this person's just walking around the way that she wants, saying the things that she wants. And that isn't a clue to you that maybe you kind of lost her somewhere and that she has a mind of her own again? And instead of doing anything, instead of saying anything worth saying, the last couple of things that he says is, like what? Poorly. And the face doesn't move right, and it just looks bad. It doesn't sound good. It's terrible. It's terrible. And so she kills him, and that's the end. That's the end of Trigon. Super boring. Maybe he'll come back later, but I want to see a bad guy get developed, in a season like this, and then if they're going to merge it to season 2, make him a big villain. Don't kill him off in 30 seconds. It doesn't make any sense. Why did I watch the whole first season? It's like watching the CW Flash. Remember when he did the whole Flashpoint paradox? Like, he went back and saved his mom. You know how long he was in the Flashpoint paradox? 1 episode. You know how much of a missed opportunity that is? You have all these character stories that you could talk about. You have all of these different villains that you could go down rabbit holes with. Instead, you bring them back, you fix it in 1 hour. How boring is that? It totally makes the whole thing fall flat. It ruins the gravity of the situation, and it's just boring. Or when he goes into the Speed Force after defeating the most recent villain, right? And he goes into the Speed Force, and he's sacrificing himself to save the planet. You know how long he's in the Speed Force for? 1 episode. 1 episode. He sacrificed himself for 1 hour. Come on, really? How boring is that? It's so boring. I would have liked to have seen Trigon actually make a mark, actually do something worth talking about. But I digress. I'm talking too much about this. It's getting too long of a video. The last couple things I want to say is it makes sense why they don't do the T building. I'm a big fan of the Titans T headquarters, but it's very cartoony. And they're going for the more realistic version, so it makes sense that they put him up in a penthouse in a really big skyscraper. I would have preferred to have seen the comic thing, but I understand why they went that route. You'd hope that nobody else lives on that building though, because that would be weird. Kind of give it away. So it must be just their building. And I'm excited to see more of the Titans headquarters. And overall, there was a lot of things I really enjoyed about this episode. There was also a substantial amount that I did not like. So let's give this a final grade, and let's see if it's worth watching and see if it's worth continuing to watch. So when I grade movies or TV shows, I grade it on a letter grade, and I go from A+ to F. Very rarely do I give an F-, which isn't even a real thing in the grading scale. But if it's so bad, I will go out of the grading scale and I'll give an F-. But A+ to F. And based off of what I watched, how I felt about the episode, I liked a lot of the characters. I liked some of the dialogue with those characters. And I thought that overall, that won me over to make me excited enough to watch episode 2. The things I had frustrations with was enough to not give this a fantastic grade, right? Trigon, some of the acting, some of the character development, I just don't think is very good. I hope that they fix it, and I think they have the opportunity to fix it, so we'll see as we get going. So overall, I give it a meh. I give it a meh grade. So I'm gonna give it a C, a solid C. Not a C-, not a C+, but I give it a good C. So it's worth going to the next episode. It's really not worth watching again. So that's my final grade. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It does really help. If you disagree with me, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. We're going for 10,000 subscribers. I'll see you in the next one.